All right. So let's go ahead and get into some stories. The first one comes from Bleeping Computer, and the title here is Oracle customers confirm data stolen in alleged cloud breach is valid. This is quite a story.
Yeah, there's been
Uh,
a lot of fog of war around this one, it seems.
yes. So there is um, a renowned threat actor that goes by the name Rose 87168, which just rolls
Rolls
right
off
off,
the tongue. Yeah, yeah, that's
right off the tongue. Has apparently hacked into an Oracle Cloud infrastructure server and is claiming to have stolen data of about 6 million Oracle Cloud customer accounts. It's a little unclear exactly what it represents, but it distills down into data that aligns with 140,000, almost 141,000 different domains that are aligned with customers or companies and government agencies, which I presume are customers of Oracle Cloud.
at least
The
for the
interesting,
moment.
yeah, at least for the moment. The interesting thing is that Oracle denies that they have been hacked. The official statement that they are putting out is that this is a quote. There has been no breach of Oracle Cloud. The published credentials are not for the Oracle Cloud, no Oracle Cloud customers experienced a breach or lost any data. However, the threat actor here has been working or communicating. I wouldn't say working with, that doesn't sound right.
Hmm.
Communicating with journalists and has been providing some sample data from the breach. And uh, Bleeping Computers reporters here also received some of that and contacted the alleged customers who have in turn, no, they're remaining anonymous, but they are confirming that the data appears to be legitimate. And so um, it goes a little bit further in saying that there was the server that was alleged to have been compromised. If I think there was a company called CloudSec did some research and found that it was actually running a version of some Oracle middleware that had a known CVE from back in 2021 that basically allowed unauthenticated remote code execution. And that, as of I think mid-February of 2025, was still online. And subsequent to the announcement of the breach, Oracle has taken that server offline.
That's
And
a
the
complete coincidence. I don't
total,
understand why you're pointing that out.
total
That's just
coincidence. The mental
look
picture, by the way,
routine.
that the mental picture that I've got in my mind is the guy from Iraq,
Yes.
the communication minister who just saying that that there are no Americans here, as you can see the American tanks in the background. Um,
Yes.
Now, look, we don't know exactly what the heck is actually going on. All
Right.
indications are that they were hacked. However, Oracle is continuing to maintain that they weren't hacked. There are a lot of articles that have been written about this, and there's actually some. This article is a couple days old. There's actually even some updated ones from today indicating that the threat actor here has started offering the data for sale because Oracle is apparently not playing ball.
Mm-hmm.
So fun times ahead for for Oracle. But I think there's some interesting lessons in all of this here. We obviously we don't know what the reality is. Like, we know that the threat actor has said they stole data. Um, they provided some data to journalists. The journalists have contacted the people who are the apparent owners of the data, and that was confirmed to be legitimate. We know that this server was apparently still online as of a couple of weeks ago with a vulnerability that the threat actor also claims to have used in committing this this data breach. We know that they demonstrated, the threat actor here demonstrated that they had the ability to uh, upload files onto the server through by demonstrating that they uploaded a file through a archive.org page. They were able to show that they had actually uploaded something prior to that server being taken down. So again, all indications are that something bad happened. I will say, look, we don't know exactly what happened, but I think there's some interesting lessons or interesting things to talk about here. One of the first ones is it's difficult in a large environment. Like I came from a cloud provider,
Mhm.
and in the context of a cloud provider, you
You
have a
mean like you were born out of a cloud provider, right? Like you were,
totally exactly
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Like Canadians are born out of the ice. You were born out of a cloud provider.
I walked straight out of the cloud. That's right.
That's fair. Carry on.
So I think most people know I was the CISO of a public cloud for a couple of years, and so I have some experience. Cloud
Mhm.
providers have a lot of infrastructure, and I mean a lot of infrastructure, beyond what normal companies would have in general. And so it doesn't surprise me that a company like it would have such a large infrastructure and possibly have a key piece of infrastructure that is so far behind. I
Sure.
will tell you, like, if you do not constantly hunt for that kind of thing, it will happen, right?
Mhm.
It's an inevitability, and so it's something that you have to bake into your process. Now, obviously, if you have like two or three or four servers, it's less important, right? But if you have 100,000 or 150,000 or 500,000 servers, like it becomes a lot more important that you maintain rigor around inventory and reconciliation and knowing what you have. Now, the other
Mhm.
thought that I had was like it's Oracle software, and perhaps they couldn't afford the renewal.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, internal billing is a pain in the butt, and if you don't have the budget,
If, yeah, what are you going to do? You just have to hope.
yeah, asset management is a really tough, and vulnerability management associated with that is a tough nut to crack because seems like such a low return, low value activity, but it's so foundational to everything else that we do in security. But it's really tough to get people bought into, especially, security wants the asset owners to maintain their own asset inventories and CMDBs and that sort of thing. And they're busy doing stuff that they think provides value and updating paperwork on what systems they have and what versions are running is not something that they find very valuable. But to your point, some small little server somewhere could slip by on a big infrastructure. What I find telling, or at least interesting, is how vehemently strong Oracle's response is. They're not giving themselves any wiggle room. So I don't know. I have no idea what Oracle's thinking. And if I'm an Oracle customer, it's got to be really frustrating. Like,
Oh
if
yeah.
you're
Oh yeah.
if you're an Oracle customer potentially impacted by this, and you're the CISO and you're demanding of your team what's going on, and your team's like, we don't know. Like we don't know if we're impacted or not. We can't tell you if we're impacted or not. Is a problem. um, and I feel for those teams. Like when they're trying to figure out, are we at risk? Do we have a threat here? Do we need to start rotating secrets? They just don't know. And there's so much doubt now around this issue. I don't know if people are just going to believe Oracle uh, outright as they haven't been hacked.
I I've got to you know I've got to believe it's hard for the average Oracle customer to buy that.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, Oracle. I think Oracle caters. in many ways. Like they have a free tier, which is wildly popular. And so like we don't know how many of the 6 million, assuming it's happened as reported. Like we don't know how many of the 6 million are like free tier customers and
Right.
whatnot. So like there may not be a lot of maturity around that. Like you might say like, yeah, I've been freeloading on Oracle Cloud for a long time. My data was stolen. That's a horrible thing. As opposed to like, I'm a bank or a large enterprise, and the credentials to my cloud account were just apparently stolen.
Right.
So
Or if it's free tier customers that went dormant and it's
right,
old customer logins that are no longer even active
yeah,
on the system.
I would imagine that there's a lot of that. That was something that we always struggled with was there's a lot of tire kickers, right?
Right.
People come in, test it out, and they close down their workloads, and then they just abandon their account. They
So like
never come
7
back.
days of no inactivity, you just delete them, right?
Yeah, the it's funny, the salespeople don't really like that idea.
No? But fine.
Because at any point, any one of those 3 tier customers that have abandoned their account could come back and buy like trillions of dollars worth of
Absolutely.
hosting.
Everything is pre-sales for the next opportunity. Everything.
Everything. So the other, obviously, one aspect of this is looking at it through the lens of like, how could Oracle have acted differently? Again, assuming that things are as it appears, and we don't know that for sure. But then the other is the perspective as an Oracle customer, and I will say more abstractly, any cloud, like you're when you outsource your infrastructure like this, you're you're operating at the whim of your provider, and
Mm-hmm.
and so we haven't, remarkably, we haven't seen a lot of this kind of thing with cloud providers. Like this is exceedingly rare, given the amount of risk concentration that you have with cloud providers. Like they are, and I know this firsthand. Like they are very, they are the focus of many threat actors because it's one stop
Sure.
shopping, and so like you know it's a little surprising that it hasn't happened more often. But we are at a point, like broadly speaking, IT wise, that it's cloud is kind of it's the critical infrastructure for a lot of organizations, and so it's not, in my estimation, wasted effort to think about what do you do if your cloud provider is compromised. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, by the way, that there's like one way to think about that there, because in this instance, it looks the appearances are that it was the credentials to access cloud accounts that was stolen. But that's not the only way that it could happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
The what we used to call the undercloud, or below the line, those systems could also get compromised, which is much, in some ways, more severe, because now that compromise is kind of abstracted away from you. You don't actually have the ability to see it. Like even if the credentials for your cloud account are stolen, typically you have the ability to look at logs to see like people logged in from an IP address they don't recognize, and I can kind of see maybe what they did while they were in there. But if it's something that happens below the line in cloud, where you don't have any visibility, that's another challenge that you have to at least be aware of as a possibility.
Well,
But
you're
this
inherently
is,
trusting. You're inherently
yes,
trusting the cloud provider at some point, right? And
absolutely.
that's part of the deal you make, in theory, for the cost optimization of easily spinning up, down, and elastic type fungible resources made available to you that comes with that level of abstraction that you can't control.
Correct. But
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going is, what would you do if you were in this situation, right? Your
Yeah.
infrastructure, your IT infrastructure is in is hosted in an organization who's got Schrodinger's breach going on. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't know.
And it's
There's
non-trivial to spin up a multi-cloud DR environment that's able to just function independently, right?
right.
That's expensive. It's complicated. It's a lot of resources and it's a lot of time and energy spent on a maybe scenario.
Well, true, and in a lot of ways, despite what I think, there's certainly some regulations or regulators who are trying to drive more uniformity between cloud providers to make it easier to move from one to the other. But at its core, like, there's a lot of uniqueness, and so when typically when you select a cloud provider, you embrace their API calls, and right, and kind of the nuances of what they have to offer, and the pricing schedules and whatnot. So you make decisions, and you write code, and you craft your environment around what that provider has to offer. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really it's in some regards, especially I think for smaller organizations, really not feasible,
Yeah.
right? It's just, I mean, we can say like it would be awesome, and that you should do that, but I don't know that it's feasible for a lot of organizations to do that, because it's just a lot of duplicate work that doesn't add a lot of value except in extreme circumstances. And in this instance, it wouldn't really have helped anyway, because like the data perhaps is already, like, the horse has left the barn.
Mm-hmm.
And so moving to another provider is necessarily gonna help you, but you have to be thinking along the lines of, like, do I need, like, how do I investigate this incident?
Right.
Like, my credentials are, apparently for sale. Like, what do I do? Do obviously I would want to go and change them, but like, I would need some assurance from Oracle that they fixed the problem, and that's hard to do when they don't admit that there's a problem in the first place. And
Right.
so, like, how do you establish confidence that after you change your credentials, that, like, now you just have to go back and figure out if something bad happened in the interim? And
Well, I think
that's where
your third party risk management people just sends them a spreadsheet to ask questions. I think
you know
is the plan.
I always forget about that. That is the right approach.
Going back to the multi cloud thing, uh, there's so many little nuances that, especially on the security settings, that there's a level of expertise you have to develop. And when you're first playing in a new
Yep.
cloud or trying to build something in a new cloud, you're very likely to make a mistake. And now you've eroded some key security controls without even realizing, because the syntax and the nomenclature and the approach is different between the different cloud providers. And unlike what a lot of executives may think, technical skills between one cloud provider do not easily transport to another without some ramp up time.
It's all the cloud. It's all the cloud, and people are fungible. Knowledge is fungible. It's all, like, it's fine.
My bad. You're right.
I,
Yeah, it's
and
interesting.
I think that's where, um, tools like Wiz, we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
carve out a niche so that, like, you could define a policy, like a high level security policy, and it would be transportable between different clouds. And I
Sure.
think, you know anecdotally, like I've heard that it works relatively well. But again, like there's stark differences in capabilities between different cloud providers.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And
like that's yeah,
now
exactly.
that Google's going to buy them, uh, how much is now Wiz going to focus on Google versus how much are the other cloud providers going to want to play ball with Wiz versus are they still going to be the the theory is Google wants to do more support for multi-cloud. I don't know. I don't know how this is all going to play out, but um, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I think there'll be more to come on this story. Not the least of which is
Yeah,
some certainty about whether they were or were not actually hacked.
yeah. I mean, my gut tells me something certainly happened, and Oracle is playing word games right now, and I'm sure lawyers are involved, and this may come back to bite them. We'll see. I see a lot of people expressing a lot of lack of confidence and trust in Oracle right now.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I wouldn't be feeling super hot if I were a customer of theirs.
Uh-uh.
But at the same time,
Uh-uh.
by the way, like I know people that work there, and I've obviously not spoken to them about this, and most generally haven't spoken to them in quite some time. But like the people that I know that are there are ethical
Sure.
and responsible. So like that's kind of the discontinuity in my mind is like on the one hand it like I know that there are good people there, but on the other hand, like it just seems like this is bad.
Yeah, there could be all sorts of great people there, and this decision is being made outside of their control and outside of their knowledge and purview and influence.
That's a good point. All
Those
right.
CISOs.
See, yeah, God, CISOs. You know, like if you just do away with them. We, there's something that we could automate with AI right there. CISOs.
That's what you should do. Not send a spreadsheet. Just ask AI what to do.
Mm-hmm. That GPT. What do I do here?
Right.